Oh, wow. We are live on Oz Property Investor. We bring the big names and we have the big fun. And that went live very quickly there. So that's why you caught me off guard. How you going, Max?
Mate, I'm going really well. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, you've been member number 43 or 120 in the group. So I think it was about time that we finally got you on.
Yeah, I do remember you hitting 300. I don't know if I remember you hitting 200, but I do remember you hitting 300 in the group.
Oh, there you go. Maybe
I think Jeff has gone back in time and he's found it. I think you're number 143. Isn't that the guy that won not the Hunger Games, the Squid Games? Was that the one?
That's maybe a nerd.
Maybe
somebody really
maybe not.
How are you doing anyway, Joe?
I'm good, mate. I'm very good. I'm super pumped for this session. What I like is, Max, you just take it back to the basics, and as a part of that, not the basics, maybe foundational. We're going to be
principles, Joe. We called them. How did principles to build your wealth?
Okay, he takes it to the principles of wealth, but then offshoots of that, inside of that are other golden eggs, if you will, of absolute nuggets and wisdom that are going to allow you to go to that next stage that I don't hear anywhere else. So I'm pumped for this one. Anyway, we have a quote of the week. Max, I'm sure you have a very insightful quote. What have you got for us?
Well, actually, it's not so much a quote, is that it's how to end up with a small fortune. There's 3 ways.
Oh, God.
Ooh, okay.
First way, start with a big fortune and work your way down.
I like it.
The second one is create value that others will pay for.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And the third way is to spend less than you earn, invest the difference. And that's the only way to create a small fortune.
The only way.
I like it.
Is that original? Is that original from you, Max, or is that something you've read?
I didn't look up quotes. I've definitely stolen half of it from somewhere. I couldn't tell you from where. That would be involved in a detail question. I'm not very good with detail.
Yeah, that's not being a mortgage broker. You don't need details. Details schmeetails.
I have a whole team to look after the detail in my business. I don't need to be the one looking at the detail.
Yeah,
I love it.
Wow.
No, it's good. I feel like the option 1 would be the funnest to lose a small fortune, lose a large fortune to
That's
do
the Donald Trump method.
Go bankrupt 5 times.
Yeah, that's right. You start with a big fortune and work your way downwards.
Yeah, that's so good. Jeff, what about you, mate? What is your quote of the week?
I just wanted to interrupt the quote of the week to bring to you, if people can see this, because I just got a message or two. Drop us a like, drop us a comment, because we're getting feedback that people can't, that I've put the wrong link. So please let us know that people are I can see some people are watching, but yeah. So my quote of the week, though, is not as profound as Max's. So I apologize in advance, but at least he's English, or at least I believe William Shakespeare was English. So a fool thinks himself to be wise, but a wise man knows himself to be a fool. So I
almost threw that at someone on a Facebook discussion earlier this week.
Oh, jeez, yeah, the controversy. So yeah, no, I think that one sort of, because I do try and align it to what we're talking about. We're sort of talking about wisdom here, and I think that you sort of epitomize that. You're the person who knows enough that you realize what's within your wheelhouse. So I think it's really fantastic. But then you sort of go and learn it.
It's the more you know there is to know. That's the problem.
Yeah. I thought I was digging a hole there, Joe. Should bring up one of my other quotes about digging a hole. You're usually the one that does that. So yeah, Joe, what is your quote of the week? Is it about the storms that we're having? Or was that a joke?
No, that was not a joke. This is one of the things, right, that we're hearing a lot out there in the media is there's all this negative sentiment out there. And my little quote is, storms make the trees take deeper roots. And it's true, whenever the wind's blowing really, really hard and really strong, it allows the trees to grow stronger roots. And again, this is why we want to get Max on and talk about the fundamental principles of property, because you need to go back to looking at why people are getting involved. Like, one of the surprising things for me is I'm hearing of people like, no, I'm not going to buy any, like some people are saying, no, I'm not buying property. I'm like I'm buying property for 5% growth, because that can get me to my end goal. Like just 5% growth year on year is going to let you achieve your goals. So Yes, we've had 23, and that's definitely going to help you achieve your goals. But I think people get a little bit scared and worried. But let's, yeah, I'm excited.
Sounds good. Yes, I love that. Stronger roots. That's what we're aiming for.
Yeah,
Love it.
Standing on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah. It also I don't know. So it's slightly different. But the other thing is that when we're talking about these difficult times, it does help that the grey hairs here show that I've actually seen a little bit of stuff in the past that maybe, you know, when it's like, oh my goodness, we're going through uncharted territory. It's like,
yeah,
well, maybe there've been some of these things we've been here before.
Yeah. Okay. I'd like to unpack that a little bit. But let's jump into our ad, and then we're going to introduce this wonderful man that we have in front of us. You all would have seen him from all the Facebook posts and all the value he's added over the past 2 and a bit years now with this group. So let's dive straight in. This live session is sponsored by Scott Agate from Hello House. Scott has created the world's first property negotiation as a service business. So what does that mean? Well, let's think about it. When was the last time you negotiated on anything over $100, let alone a property that is going to be one of the biggest investments of your life? The vendor, they have a trained negotiator on their side in the form of a real estate agent. That's kind of like you stepping into the ring with Mike Tyson after never training a day of boxing in your life. These guys are trained professionals, and that's what they do day in and day out. And this is what Hello House does every single day as well. They negotiate on property to get the best buy price from the real estate agents. Scott Agate, he's the expert negotiator. He has been in this industry since 1995. He owned and operated 3 Bell franchises. Scott was the guy that was teaching these real estate agents all these agent games. He knows all of their tricks. Having him on your side is going to give you a massive unfair advantage and literally save you tens of thousands of dollars. Unlike other ways of purchasing property, Scott's incentives are aligned with you, the buyer, meaning the more money he saves you, the more money he makes, which is what you want. You need to have those incentives aligned. Scott has kindly offered our group a massive discount on the retainer fee for his service. So if you're looking to buy your next home or investment property, click the link below to get in touch.
There we go. And I dropped the link to Scott's Get Buy Ready course because we're quickly getting that redone. But I wanted to sort of, when I was digging about to see what Max has done, I was very impressed because I knew that you were a broker, but I just didn't realize the depth of, and I thought you were sort of early to mid 30s, Max. So you're absolutely you're a little been around a few more years than that, but. Before you even sort of started and even moved to Australia, you worked 15 years in as a sales director, I believe it was, for a multinational. So
yeah, I was probably more than a sales rep. I was sales director when I left. But you know, I did 15 years with a multinational. I worked in the UK, in Sydney, Brisbane, Sydney, Bangkok, and Ho Chi Minh before I quit and became a high school maths teacher.
Yeah, I saw that. I mean, teaching is a big part of your psyche. You love to, even in you said that you sort of taught your team. It was about 40 people, I think it was, that were under your team.
Yeah, that's right. At one stage, I had 13 direct reports before I split the team in half.
There you go.
A team of 50.
Yeah, and then you spent 3 years with another brokerage group before you sort of said, well, look, this is not really. There's a word used on it. I think you said it was ordinary, or it wasn't the greatest anyway. But then you left and started Golden Eggs, and Golden Eggs has been operational.
I didn't so much leave them as they went into voluntary administration, and they told us we had to stay with them and get sold on as an asset of the group, or leave and lose all of our income, lose all of our trail for 3 years. So
it's very painful.
I took the third option, which was, and now you've been brokers that stayed,
and you've been running Golden Eggs for 10 plus years now. So
we're coming up for 11 years actually in November.
Yeah, it's amazing. And the thing I love you've got this on your website. You said 15. You collect rent each month from 15 tenants, and I think the most interesting one is you've got 3 great loves. It's your wife Kelly. Who you said you date each week, which I think is really sweet, really cute. Oh, yeah. Property investing and sharing what you know of others. So that's what I dug up the dirt on Max. So what did I miss?
Lots along the way, but we're up to 16 tenants now because we just settled on another one just last month. Earlier this month, I think it was. So yeah, we're up to tenant number 16.
Congratulations,
man. In 3 countries across 7 cities. Yeah, my wife and I, we've been married 30 years.
Wow. That's a lot of years.
Amazing.
That's a lot of years. Yeah, I know. We spent our entire anniversary going, 30 years! 30 years!
Yeah, well done. So you've got an impressive bio, but and I think that's sort of some of the caliber of people we have in the group, and just experience and knowledge. So a lot of people in the group have been there, seen it, and done it before. So excited to have you on and talk a couple of key topics.
One thing I must mention is my failings, because I didn't start investing in property until I was 37. So I had a prior to that, but I was 37 before I started investing, and pretty much spent my entire 20s unable to save any money. So yeah, I like to think about what I did wrong so I can help others fix the problems.
So two questions on that. Number one, why couldn't you save any money? And second of all, what was the catalyst to start at 37? Yeah.
So without going into too much detail, my wife is a very talented spender. So we as part of what we do when we coach people on managing money is we talk about the 5 different money personalities. There's the tight ass, the saver, the person who's a bit more balanced, the spender, and the shopaholic. Well, she's very much the shopaholic and I'm the tight ass. Unfortunately, on average, that means that we'll spend all of our income but not save.
Well, it's good. It's good you've gotten to this position with those type of partners, because I think like people out there investing have some, like I always find when I'm speaking to people, it's like, I really love property investing. Oh, my partner doesn't really care. They're on that shopaholic and thing. Like, this is never going to work for me because they're not they're the shopaholic. But I don't know. Do you see?
There could be the
how do you make it work?
And they could also just simply be someone who's much more cautious and sees it as quite scary, and it can be quite scary. And we have to acknowledge that as professionals in this industry, that the first property is one of the most scary and exciting things that you'll ever do. And then going on to investing in property gets super complicated and really weird very quickly. And so we try and encourage people to get really a good solid foundation before we even start looking at stretching onto investments and so on.
Yeah. How important is the first, second, and third properties for a portfolio?
Well, it's like a journey of 1,000 steps. A journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. So if you don't buy a first property, you've got no chance of building a portfolio. If you don't buy a second property, you're not building a portfolio. And it'll tell you by your third, you still don't have anything resembling a portfolio. You just have 2 properties. So it's super, super important, but it's also quite difficult. To be honest, anyone in the last 2 years could have bought property and feel like they're a champion, because, you know, when properties suddenly go up 25, 30% in 18 months, everyone goes, well, this is so easy. We should all be doing more of it. And then suddenly the doom and gloom sets in and people go, oh, you know, where are we going to get our next deposit from?
The British pound falls off a cliff. 7% in a day or two, or which found was interesting.
Yeah, the British pound and the US dollar are close to parity. It's hilarious. It's I've been a permanent resident over here for 29 years. So
yeah, sorry, probably that's a bit painful. Sorry, I shouldn't.
I know, I'm an Aussie. I collect rent over there. I've got property over there. I'm selling one at the moment. It's going to be a pain in the ass if I sell it. And then, I've got nowhere to move the money. I might as well just use it to pay down debt over there.
Yeah, fantastic. So the thing I love, the thing that'll dovetail quite nicely, that sort of starting investing at 37. So I'll let you choose which one you want to talk to, because we ask pretty much everybody their first property purchase. So you can either say the first one you bought or the first investment property. Which one you want to pick?
Yeah. So let me just quickly share both. The first property I bought was a house in Queensland, a high-set house on a small block in Queensland, because the company had moved me up there. Now, as part of the moving up process, they were paying me a bonus, a moving bonus, and I didn't have the deposit. So I put the 5% deposit on a credit card. And then when I got the bonus, and the bonus was only paid to me after I moved into a house. So I used the bonus to pay the credit card bill when it landed. So that's how I bought my first property, because I just didn't have any money.
You bought it on credit card. How good.
For my 5% deposit, $170,000 property, I put $8,500 on the credit card. And it was back in the day when stamp duty wasn't really a big thing.
Did you keep the property? Have you kept it the whole time?
No, I had to sell it to upgrade. But then they had another plan, which is that when they moved me back to Sydney, they would pay the difference on my mortgage between the Brisbane and Sydney property for up to 5 years. So I was able to upgrade within Sydney. But again, it was I made hardly any gain on that place in Brizzy. I sold it for $180.
Those golden handcuffs, eh?
Well, yeah, but I knew I was going to be there for a while, but yeah, I made it work. But it was like really by the skin of my teeth. Thank goodness I did. And then I didn't start investing until over 10 years later.
So what was the catalyst that made you to stop at 37 and say, you know what, now's the time? Because I mean, I'm in my 30s. I think I started investing at 26, and I was like, man, I've missed the boat. Like I look at all these 22-year-olds and these
21,
Man, I should have started back then. But what was the catalyst that kind of kicked it off for you?
Oh, look, to be honest, the first book I read as an adult, I was 32. I read the Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I'd always had an interest in property. But it wasn't until I sort of decided to leave the big corporate world, where I was working ridiculous hours for a company that really didn't value what I did, because I did make them a lot of money. And I wanted to do something I love doing, which is teaching, and investing in property as a way to supplement my teaching salary. So I bought very cash positive properties in the UK, things with 8% yields. One of which I'm selling now, but and now in hindsight, if I'd only gone for a 6% yield in a better city, I'd have made hundreds of thousands more than what I made on the properties. So it's that whole, what do you go for, cash flow or capital gain? And I went for cash flow, and it looked like the right decision at the time, but I wouldn't do it again.
There you go. It's often a question that's asked in the group about, do you go cash flow or capital growth? And these people, and it's not saying you can't get both, but usually there's a skew towards one or the other. So it's just interesting you mentioned that.
Yeah. Well, so anyway, that's how I've gotten, but it was, 37 I started. By 46, my wife and I had the option of not working if we didn't want to. So we went out pretty hard, and we actually sold the family home to invest seriously, and we've been rent vesting ever since.
Ever since?
Yeah. We actually put an offer on a property about a few weeks ago, actually, and nearly bought one in the building.
So that's crazy to me. Well, it's not crazy to me, but I didn't expect that from you. I don't know why, but that surprised me. But can you give us an insight from a broking perspective what rent vesting is and why you've been doing that as a property investor, rent vesting? Because I imagine that's the reason you're doing this, because you can further off your borrowing.
So I sold the family home because it didn't meet our needs and wasn't going to meet our long-term needs. So it didn't fit in the portfolio, had a terrible rental return. Maybe if I'd kept it, the capital growth was there, but I could see opportunities elsewhere. And in particular, I put that money in the States. So that was a great move. That was an incredible move that I'm so glad I put my balls on the line and did that. But it's more that the kind of property that my wife and I want to live in, we're empty nesters. Our kids have moved out of home long ago, is the kind of place we want to live in. The last place we moved out of, we were renting for $950 a week, which sounds like a lot of rent to be paying. But when we moved out, they sold it for $3.5 million.
It's about a 2% yield, roughly, maybe a little touch under two.
It's under. It's crazy. It's you just go, well, hang on a second. I'd far rather I've got multiple properties individually that would cover my rent. So, and they're worth a fraction of the $3.5 million, and we still don't know where we want to live when we grow up. So why commit shitload of stamp duty and buy something when, you know, we're not certain of where we want to end up.
Yeah. Okay. So it has got to do with the borrowing ability. But still, where do you want to set down?
It's borrowing, it's investing. I just don't see the value in $3.5 million worth of property up, because our average yields are above 5%. It means that we're making probably $4,000 or more a week rent on properties of an equivalent value, and we're only, you know, even after tax, $950 a doddle. Why would I want to sink that money into that kind of property?
Well, one of the things, I guess, with the interest rates as they are, we are starting to see interest rates rise, and we're starting to see sentiment change a little bit as well. What are you seeing from some of your more sophisticated investors around where they're kind of looking for at property? Like, are you seeing any trends that your more sophisticated clients are looking at?
Most clients, sophisticated or otherwise, at the moment are taking stock. So I've got clients with multiple properties in their portfolio that are pretty much selling up. And I've got others trying to consolidate their debts and put themselves in again, it's that kind of, how do you make yourself stronger? I've got one client that's selling everything, but that's mainly because all the assets she's bought, she's realized weren't very good assets. So it's all very well to own a big portfolio, but if the assets themselves are garbage, then, you know, you've had a bit of a run on them, you know, take some money and run, or get out of them, because suddenly having to service a huge debt across them is a scary thing. So most people are taking stock. They're reorganizing their loans. They're pulling equity. We're getting a lot of clients pulling equity right now, while the valuations are, you know, if you think property is going to fall, get it valued today, pull the equity out today. And then if they are going to fall, you'll have a shitload of equity to go buying with as the property prices go.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. Okay. And the reason you would do that is purely because you can take the money out as equity and then sit it in your offset account to be able to then use it. Oh, here we go. We've said the offset
None of this
word.
is financial advice, by the way, people. We should have put the...
No financial advice here, but drawing equity out and putting an offset account is an incredibly dangerous thing to do from an audit perspective. So it's much better to, yes, put the disclaimer up. It's much better to...
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah.
The tax deduction is created when you draw the funds. So if I draw the funds on a loan today and put it in an offset account today, and I buy a property next March, and I happen to use some of those offset account funds, then it's not very clear that I borrowed the money for that investment property, because there was a 6-month lag when I had the loan and I didn't have the property. And also the amount that I borrowed is not the same as the amount I put down as the deposit. Whereas if I'd have just put the funds back in the loan and left it in redraw, I'd still have the money sitting in redraw. But when I do redraw it, because I'm putting a deposit down, it's bloody obvious what I'm doing. I just pulled out 65 grand to pay a 10% deposit on a $650,000 property. I didn't have 130 grand sitting in an offset account for 6 months. So anyway, and just this is not part of what we were supposed to be talking about, but anyway, but if you do put the funds in an offset account, and there is one transaction of a personal nature through that offset account, they can deny the entire deduction on that equity loan.
Yeah, it's absolutely
so
crazy.
Offset accounts have their uses. That's not one of them. That's the opposite of what they're for.
Yeah. So we go for a redraw instead. We talked about...
Correct.
You speak to your broker or financial planner and or bank manager.
Or accountant, Joe. Accountant. They give tax advice.
Accountants. We speak to lots of accountants.
Yeah, I saw your post about that.
Given. It scares me. It's like, ooh.
So let's get into the meat and potatoes, because I love talking property investing. That is kind of property investing that we were talking about. But
of course,
I think one of your first points is about the importance of sort of organizing your money and getting it all together. So why is that actually important?
Well, it comes back to, you know, when we talk about growing your wealth, if the trick is to spend less than you earn and invest the difference, well, then how do you spend less than you earn? Because everything we tend to talk about is all about the investing.
Yeah.
We tend to spend, you've got some charts there, but I've kind of jumped ahead a couple, but there's sort of four things that I tend to look for. Firstly is how do I control the money? Secondly, how do I set goals for my life? Because jumping out and taking action is brilliant. You've got to do it. But what are you trying to achieve by it? And how does property meet the needs? And then how do we keep extending our borrowing capacity? Because everyone's borrowing capacity is dropping like a stone. And how do we extend it if we do want to keep investing in the future? And then also, what do we buy in a flat or declining market? Because I'm still out there looking, and I've got clients that are out there looking. I've got family members that are out there looking, and I'm not telling them to stop buying, even though we might think the market has got more in some markets, because there's no such thing as the property market. I've got more downside than upside risk. But yeah, so they're the sort of the big questions I want to look at. But the most underrated one is, how do I control my money?
Okay.
And that's
what do you mean by
that? Can you flick on the slides, but just skip ahead a couple?
Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You
just
too quick, sir.
I need to skip ahead. Yeah, that's sorry. I need to skip ahead. That's me.
Oh.
I didn't realize. I'm controlling. Yeah. So people spend less than you earn and invest the difference. Like I say, everyone tends to focus on the investments. Some will focus on the income, get another job. But hardly anyone looks at spending. And people tell me things like, it's the cost of living. We're not idiots with our money. We spend what we spend. And we always clear our credit card in full. So therefore, we're fine. And the truth is quite different. And a typical conversation, and I know that, Jeff, you've been a broker before, but this is a conversation I have with clients day in, day out. And I ask the question, first thing, how much do you spend each month? And, Mitch and Grace, lovely people, they start adding up their bills and their groceries, and they go, oh, that's about a couple of $1,000. And then entertainment, that's about 500. So let's say $2,500 a month. Now, I know full well that the household expenditure matrix for them as a couple with a child is about $3,500. And so them saying they're spending $2,500 is probably a load of crap. But I let them go for a little while because that's what they said and that's what they think they can prove. And then we ask them the next question. So what's your typical credit card bill? $4,000. Typical, absolutely typical. I'm not, I've generalized the figures, but that's what they're actually spending. And in fact, the typical credit card bill in this particular couple, and it's true of everyone, is $4,000 a month is very typical. And it's very typical to be massively out when we estimate from the bottom up. We add our bills up quite accurately. And in Australia, we only spend, when we add up bills and groceries, we only spend about 15-20% of our income on that. The rest of it goes on all the discretionary stuff that we don't realize we're doing.
That's crazy because I thought I was relatively good with money, and like I'm not horrible. I'm not sort of going out, but I've been tracking it now for quite some time, and you definitely underestimate how much you're spending, and it's the credit card or the bank statement or whatever it is you look at things these days doesn't lie.
It's looking at, but the problem with that is looking in the rearview mirror, but it doesn't kind of work. So if we kind of move along from there, it is normal to be bad with money. Money is an abstract concept. It's very hard to keep track of, and maths is hard. Mental maths, I'm very good at mental maths. It's one of the things I was naturally gifted with as a child and practiced, and I teach my grandson now about mental maths. I was so proud of him when he was able to work out what 80% of $850,000 was the other day. He's 7.
Wow.
No pen, no paper, no calculator. But most people use the same account for their income and their spending. And what that means, and this is what we did in my 20s, is the more you earn, the more you spend. Most people also use the same account for bills and everyday spending. And so how do you know if what you've just spent was due to lots of bills or due to lots of discretionary spending? It's very difficult to know. And I know what we used to do was we used to look back at the credit card bill that was always a bit higher than we thought it should be. And we would focus on the big things. We'd focus on the electric bill, not on all of the little things that always add up. And of course, look, advertisers spend a fortune trying to woo us and get us to spend money. And, even McDonald's arches, they're yellow and red because it makes us feel hungry and want to take action. That's what those colors are designed for, to program in our brains, is to make us feel hungry and take action. That's what the yellow and the red combination does to us. And fast food alone in this country accounts for $2,200 per household average.
Per year? Or?
Yeah, I guess with like Uber Eats and stuff like that, that's probably even more inflated now.
Yeah, it's going absolutely crazy. So, but people don't think of it as being spending. And also, let's not forget, life is hard and buying stuff makes it feel better for a short while. But this genuine story again, I have a client with $8 million in property, $2 million in loans, and is stressed about money.
That's crazy.
Genuinely stressed.
Yeah.
In fact, when I told him there was a solution to fix it, the guy was almost in tears, like happy tears, because he couldn't believe that this stress was going to get lifted away from him. Couldn't believe it.
Were they stressed because they were spending so basically all they earned? Or what was the stress up?
No, they weren't spending all that they were earning, but they just didn't feel like they were in control of anything. And look, most people have typically people only have one account that everything goes through. And I know people, when they get a property, end up with just the offset account and try and do everything through that. And I know we posted about this on the weekend. The problem with this is, if you've got every single expense coming out of the same account and you've got 4 or 5 properties, then you've got 4 or 5 sets of rates, water rates, all those sorts of bills that are all coming out of your credit card. You've got all the repayments flying everywhere. You've got your childcare expenses. You've got your weekly this, your monthly the other, and it is stressful. And so, the guy's trying to run a massive spreadsheet to keep control of it. And a spreadsheet does not stop someone tapping a card.
True problem.
That's what it is. 50 years ago, nobody had this problem. Well, a few people did, but they were the idiots. Well, the funny thing is I need to tell you this. This is 50 years ago, everyone was paid cash weekly. And everybody knew, and it was passed down from father to son, from mother to daughter, that you take your pay home.
Yeah, it's in an envelope.
Hide it in a tin, in an envelope under the mattress, and then you walk out the door with your spending money, knowing that you're going to be a bit of an idiot and spend that money, but at least it's only the amount you've set. I remember my dad used to get £5 to go out on the weekend. That was his money for going out. And everybody knew that the only people that walked around with their entire pay packet on them were drunks, gamblers, and idiots. Everyone knew that. For centuries, everyone knew that. Drunks, gamblers, idiots, take your money home, hide it. Now what do? We walk out the door with a bloody phone access to our entire wealth, all of our income, everywhere we go. Are we drunks? Are we gamblers?
Just deactivate the app. Do it now.
Exactly right. Deactivate the app. The problem with this kind of approach is that you've got you're trying to budget with your entire income and life savings all at once, and it's super hard to do that. You can't budget.
It is. Yeah.
It's not budgeting at all. You're just hoping that you don't spend too much. Bills and discretionary spending, mixing those two things together, as soon as you mix them together, people don't know where they stand. They don't know whether, was it a big month because of the bills? Was it a big month because of the other stuff? They don't know. And when 2 of you are spending from the same account, and one of them's anything like my wife or just a normal person, then you've got, one of you thinks you're being tight and careful, and the other one's making all the money disappear. And then
that can cause friction and other challenges of its own.
Four reasons for divorce: money, lack of shared goals, kids, and infidelity. But money is one of the key things.
Kids, though, is a key reason for divorce. What? Because of
a combination of things with kids. It's kids take the focus away from the partner who thought they were special. Parenting styles can be quite different. You can blame one another. It's really stressful with kids, so it's got whatever. And then, of course, there's the poor people. We're dealing with a couple today who just got their consent orders through. They love each other dearly, but she can't have kids. He wants them.
Yeah.
Consent
Bit
order.
of incompatibility, unfortunately.
It's when you separate that property. They got like 5 properties between them, and now we've got to pull everything apart. We've helped them build a portfolio over the last decade. Now we've got to split it up into 2.
You have to go to court to make sure that the judge sort of sign off.
Yeah. Consent orders just means we've agreed on something. We take it to court. Judge stamps it, and it's done.
Yeah.
You can't change your mind and go, oh no, I didn't want that property. I wanted the other one.
Yeah. Okay. So how do we solve this problem? This is a big problem. I don't like it.
Big problem. By the way, Barefoot Investor, helpful, but not great. I've done all his in orange because he does everything with ING. Monthly budgeting, again, he does everything monthly, super hard. He again puts bills and discretionary spending together. And
so I had this Barefoot Investor strategy, and I love Barefoot Investor. I think foundational stuff. Read his book. I liked his share investing book as well, which was one of his first ones. Great little foundational stuff to kind of get you motivated and going. I think that's the vibe. That's what happened with me when I read it. But the challenge that I had with these is that you needed different accounts and different cards for different things. And it was just really annoying having like 6 cards in my bloody wallet for 6 different things. And I would always tap the wrong one. And then I would then have to log into this account, and I'd have to have 6 different logins because one's with ING, the other one's with Westpac, the other one's with ING under a different login. It was a bloody nightmare. So I couldn't keep it going.
But the funny thing is people work around that, and we recommend different banks. But the biggest problem is having the income going into everyday account, which is the one you can access. That is the stupidest thing you can ever do with your finances, and we all do it. And he doesn't change it. And the reason it's stupid is because every year our income will change.
Yep.
And if we keep doing the same thing, income goes in and we spend from that account, we will keep spending more when we earn more. And that's the problem.
Yeah.
And I want to get wealthy.
I'm all for it. I want solutions now, Max, because you built this problem up and I'm getting lost.
Here's the solution. It's very simple. It looks complicated. It's not. First thing is, if we separate out, our income goes into an account where we only ever pay bills. And we don't have any debit or credit card linked to that. Okay. I actually do this.
No card at all. No card whatsoever. You cannot use that account on your phone or your PayPass or anything.
If you have a card for it, keep it in a drawer in the office.
Yeah. Okay.
You don't need it in your wallet. You don't need it on your phone because you're going to be an idiot with it if you do. Okay. Now, as soon as you do that, you've fixed 80% of spending problems.
Yep.
Because now, as your income grows, it gets stuck in this account that you're only paying bills from. And bills are kind of, you don't squander money on extra electricity because you've got a pay rise. What we do instead is we fix the everyday account, one each. Anyone who thinks they can do it together doesn't understand human beings. One each. If you're in a couple, one each. If you're on your own, one. But you put a fixed weekly expenses. Now, I don't care whether the pay comes in fortnightly, monthly, or whenever. Weekly is the best way of managing your grocery bills. And sorry, I've used the word bill. So groceries are not bills, just so you know. It's completely discretionary. The brilliant thing about putting groceries with you every day is that there's an incentive to cut back. But now we've fixed our spending. We fixed our discretionary spending on a weekly basis. But we then get the other discretionary spending, which is monthly. We throw it into a fun account. That account might be a separate account with the same bank, and you just transfer the money when you need it. So you're always only ever carrying one debit card each, which is linked to an account you can access.
And they're 2 different accounts, like 2 different connections.
So it depends on the couple. So it depends on the couple. So every couple needs an account each.
Because Joe gets every day and Joe gets fun. There's a fun Joe and a fun every day. Believe it or not, there is a fun Joe out there.
Yeah. So Max doesn't get a fun. So just so you know, Kelly gets a fun. Kelly gets an everyday. Max gets an everyday with stuff all money in it because Max doesn't spend money because he's a tight ass. Max doesn't need a fun money. He just needs to ask Kelly when he needs something. But that's what works for us. For other couples, there'll be a fun Joe and a fun, sorry, what's your partner again? Cat. So there'll be a fun Joe and a fun cat. So it depends on the couple. So but for me and Kelly, it's just this is Kelly's money, and she can do what the hell she wants with it, and I don't care.
Yeah, and then here you're allocating other funds for other things that you want to do, like a holiday or a house deposit, for instance. Correct. You can say, yeah, and then that bills packet just keeps accumulating any extras that you get on, and that becomes somewhat of a savings account, and you just keep paying the bills out as it happens.
Yes, some people would mix the bills in the future into an offset account, for example, after they've got a property, but you don't want to be spending from the offset account. You want to be spending from somewhere where you know what you're spending. We never look back at, you know how they spend tracking apps we were talking about earlier on? Me and Kelly never do that.
Yeah, you don't need to. You don't need to anymore. Yeah,
I know exactly what she spent last week and the week before, the week before, the week before, the week before.
Too. Yeah. Cool.
By the way, we've been running this system for 14 years. Guess how often we've changed the weekly and the monthly amounts? In 14 years.
Probably 3 times, 4 times.
3 times. 3 times. We're probably at the point now, if inflation keeps going, that we might have to go, put a bit more. But that just means more money is accumulating on this side of the equation, which is the important stuff. So
has that been in the comments, guys? Throw in the comments if this has been valuable for you, because this is, I think this is super foundational stuff for people that maybe struggle with spending and not knowing where the money's going. Have you got another slide for this?
No, so I think I'm going to finish off on that and move on, just simply because we've got a whole app that helps you guides you through this process and how much you need in each account and all that sort of stuff. So we do. It's an online app. It's not a app store app. But it's to help you sort of organize the money. And by the way, holidays is a separate savings. I don't give a rat's ass who you are. If you want to take a holiday, if you don't want to take a holiday, you need a holiday budget so you can start taking one. You plan to have one because holidays are awesome and they punctuate our year. But you don't want to mix that up with your offset funds or your savings or anything else, because then you'll either feel guilty about spending too much or not, either you won't want to go and because it will use your money, or you will go, but you'll just, take too big a swag out of it.
So we've got a question that's come up here, maybe jump on the gun here, but how do we set this up for investment properties?
Yes, sweet. So what I run a business, right? I run 2 businesses. One is a mortgage broking business, and the second is my investment property business. Now, my investment property business has its own banking system. The rent comes into that banking system and the mortgages get paid from that banking system. And if I had just one property and it was my first investment property, I would say, set up an investment property account, have the rent go in, pay all the rental property bills, including the rental property mortgage or mortgages, from that one account. If it's an offset account, fantastic. Maybe it's not quite as efficient as having it linked to your home. But the clarity it gives you on that property, if your balance is falling, that property is costing you money. Even if the theory said it was going to make you money for the year, if the balance is falling month to month, you're losing money. And if the balance is growing, you're making money. But and more importantly, you've got that clarity of thought now, because instead of, the bills coming out of the bills account and it's mixed in with your personal spending and you know where you sit. And when you do your tax time, it is so easy. There's like 30 transactions for the year and they're all property related and you can then hand it over.
Look at this. We've already got someone. I'm a saver and partner is a spender. We've already got the system set up and it's working great.
This could be someone I know, so I don't know.
Yeah,
it's Haley.
I've been pushing this for a while. It's in my book that for those of you who don't know, I have written a book, Getting Your Money Shit Together, and it is in the first chapter.
Here's one I prepared earlier.
Yes, here's one I prepared earlier. This is one of my few originals. I should have said I do have some other slides, but it's unrelated. So the money management is the most important thing. If you can get that right and you can fix your discretionary spending, then you never, ever, ever have to worry again about being over budget. You just have to worry about, did I set the amounts right?
So just a quick question from my own sake is, so your properties have individual accounts for individual properties rather than, or does the entire portfolio function standalone?
Yeah, so think of it like any business. It's ownership. If a property is in my name, and another property is in Kelly's name, that's two different accounts.
Okay.
If both properties are in mine and Kelly's names, that's one account. So we have one account in the UK. So we have one account in the UK for our 3 investment properties. All those investment properties feed into the same account, because it doesn't really matter to us whether one property is making slightly more than the other, but we know our UK property spins out a lot of cash for us and helps pay for our holidays. So it just makes it, but again, from tax time perspective, if they were different ownership structures, so most of my property is held in trusts. Each trust has its own bank account because it legally needs to.
Yeah, perfect.
So each ownership has its own bank account. And so if it was a couple, you could have one, if it was a Joe, a Cat, and a joint, I would have 3 separate bank accounts. And if you had 8 properties, they'd either go in the Joe, Cat, or joint one, depending on who owns them. And then
trusts
separately. Yeah, trusts get their rights.
Yeah.